Dr. Elena Vasquez rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the computer screen again. The numbers still made no sense. She had been working at the Kepler Deep Space Observatory for 15 years, and she had never seen anything like this. It was 3 in the morning. The rest of the night shift had gone home hours ago, but Elena could not leave. Something was wrong with the data. Very wrong. The massive object had appeared at the edge of the solar system 12 hours ago. One moment there was empty space. The next moment there was something the size of a small moon floating near Pluto. No flash of light, no energy burst, no warning at all. It was just there. Elena picked up her coffee cup and found it empty. She had forgotten to drink it again. Her supervisor would arrive in 4 hours and expect a full report. But how could she explain something that should not exist? The ship was huge. Elena estimated it was at least 2,000 kilometers across. But it did not look like any ship she had ever seen. The hull seemed to move and shift like it was alive. Sometimes it looked like metal. Sometimes it looked like liquid. Sometimes it looked like both at the same time. Her instruments could not get a proper reading. The electromagnetic scanners showed nothing. The radio telescopes picked up silence. The thermal sensors detected no heat signature. It was as if the ship existed but did not exist at the same time. Elena pulled up the star charts on her second monitor. She always kept them running to track any changes in the night sky. What she saw made her hands shake. 3 stars in the constellation of Orion were gone, not dimmed, not blocked by dust clouds, gone, completely erased from existence. The space where they had been was now empty black void. The surrounding stars shone as normal, but those 3 points of light had simply vanished. Elena checked her archives. Those stars had been there yesterday. She had data going back 20 years that showed them burning bright and steady. Now they were not there at all. She ran the scan again. Still nothing. She tried a different telescope array on the other side of Earth. The same result. 3 stars that had burned for billions of years no longer existed. Elena reached for her phone to call her supervisor, then stopped. Dr. Martinez would think she was having a breakdown. Elena needed more data first. She focused all available instruments on the mysterious ship. For 2 hours she gathered every reading she could. The ship continued to drift slowly toward the inner solar system. Its surface rippled and flowed like water, but the overall shape stayed the same. Then Elena noticed something that made her blood run cold. The ship was getting brighter. Not from any light it produced, but because it was reflecting light that should not be there. Light from stars that no longer existed. Elena pulled up the real-time star map again. 5 more stars had vanished while she watched. This time they were in the constellation of Cassiopeia. They flickered once and were gone. She grabbed her phone and dialed Dr. Martinez's home number. It rang 4 times before his sleepy voice answered. "This better be good, Elena. It's 4 in the morning. Stars are disappearing," Elena said without introduction. "Something appeared in our solar system 12 hours ago, and stars are being erased from existence." Silence on the other end of the line. "Elena, are you feeling okay? Maybe you should go home and get some sleep." "I'm sending you the data now," Elena said, typing rapidly on her keyboard. "Look at grid references 4A through 7C in Orion, then check Cassiopeia sectors 2B and 3B. The stars are gone." She heard Dr. Martinez moving around on the other end of the line, the sound of a computer starting up. "Give me 2 minutes," he said. Elena waited. She used the time to run another scan of the night sky. 2 more stars had vanished. This time, from the constellation of Andromeda. "Mother of God?" Dr. Martinez whispered through the phone. "Elena, stay right where you are. Don't talk to anyone." "I'm calling the director." Elena hung up and stared at her screens. The strange ship had moved closer to Neptune's orbit. As she watched, it seemed to pulse with a rhythm like a heartbeat. Each pulse was followed by the disappearance of another star somewhere in the galaxy. She tried to calculate how this was possible. The nearest star to Earth was over 4 light years away. Even if this ship had some kind of weapon, the light from those dying stars should not reach Earth for years. Yet she was watching them vanish in real time. Elena's computer chimed with an incoming message. It was from the Arecibo Radio Observatory in Puerto Rico, then another from the Very Large Array in New Mexico. Then messages started flooding in from observatories all over the world. Everyone was seeing the same thing. Stars were disappearing at an increasing rate. The phenomenon was visible from every telescope on Earth. Elena opened the first message. It was from Dr. Chen at Arecibo. Are you seeing this? We count 47 stars gone in the last hour. Whatever that thing is near Pluto, it's eating starlight. Get everyone together. This is bigger than all of us. The phone rang again. This time it was Elena's director, Dr. Williams. Elena, I need you to stay calm and listen carefully. We're getting reports from observatories worldwide. This is now a global emergency. The International Space Agency is sending a team to your location within the hour. What about the ship? Elena asked. What ship? Elena felt confused. The massive ship near Pluto, the one that appeared 12 hours ago. Silence on the line. Elena, we're not detecting any ship. Our instruments show empty space near Pluto. Are you sure about what you're seeing? Elena looked at her screens. The ship was still there, clear as day on every instrument she had pointed at it. How could other observatories not see it? I'm looking at it right now, Elena said. It's huge. Bigger than anything we've ever seen. Send me everything, Dr. Williams said. Every scan, every reading, every photograph. If you can see something we can't, we need to understand why. Elena worked frantically to package all her data. As she worked, she kept one eye on the star. Charts. The rate of disappearance was accelerating. What had started as a few missing stars was now becoming a flood of vanishing light. She noticed a pattern. The stars were not disappearing randomly. They were being erased in a specific order, creating empty spaces that formed geometric shapes in the night sky. Someone or something was editing the galaxy with mathematical precision. The mysterious ship pulsed again. This time Elena felt something strange, a pressure in her mind like someone trying to speak to her without words. The feeling lasted only a moment, but it left her shaken. Her computer displayed a new alert. Long-range sensors had detected something approaching from the direction of Jupiter. Elena switched to the outer system cameras and saw a sight that made her heart race. A fleet of ships was heading toward Earth at incredible speed. But these ships looked familiar. They had the angular design and bright blue engines of Earth Defense Force vessels. Elena opened a communication channel to the approaching fleet. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez at Kepler Observatory calling EDF Fleet. Please identify yourselves. A woman's voice responded immediately. This is Commander Sarah Chun aboard the EDF destroyer Vigilant. Dr. Vasquez, we're en route to investigate reports of an unknown vessel in our solar system. What's your status? Commander, I've been tracking a massive unidentified ship for the past 14 hours. It appeared near Pluto without warning and has been moving steadily toward the inner system. More importantly, stars are disappearing from the galaxy at an accelerating rate. We copy that, Doctor. Our long-range sensors confirm the stellar disappearances, but we're having trouble getting a fix on the unknown vessel. Can you transmit your tracking data? Elena sent her data package to the approaching fleet. As she worked, she noticed something troubling. The strange ship had changed course. Instead of continuing toward the inner planets, it was now moving to intercept the Earth Defense Force fleet. Commander Chun, the unidentified vessel has altered course. It's heading directly for your position. Understood, Doctor. We're picking up some unusual readings now. This thing is massive. How did it get so close without being detected? Elena watched her instruments as the EDF fleet spread out into attack formation. 12 destroyers and 3 heavy cruisers armed with humanities. Most advanced weapons. Against any normal threat, they would be overwhelming force. But Elena had a terrible feeling that this was not a normal threat. The mysterious ship pulsed again, stronger this time. Elena felt the mental pressure return, more intense than before. This time she could almost make out words in a language she did not recognize. On her star chart, an entire constellation vanished. 37 stars erased in a single moment. Elena grabbed her phone and called Commander Chun directly. Commander, whatever that thing is, it's not just eating stars. It's rewriting reality itself. I don't think conventional weapons will work against it. We'll see about that, Doctor. The defense of Earth is our responsibility. Chun out. Elena watched helplessly as the EDF fleet closed the distance to the impossible ship. She had spent her life studying the stars, learning their patterns, understanding their behavior. Stars did not simply vanish. Ships did not appear from nowhere. Reality had rules. But something had entered their solar system that did not follow any rules Elena understood. Something that could erase stars with a thought and remain invisible to most instruments. Something that was now moving to engage the pride of humanity's space fleet. Elena saved all her data to multiple backup systems and sent copies to every observatory she could reach. If something happened to her, others needed to know what she had seen. Outside, the first hint of dawn was appearing on the horizon. In a few hours, people would wake up to a changed universe. They would look up at a night sky with fewer stars, though most would never notice the difference. But Elena would remember. She would remember the night the stars began to disappear, and humanity first encountered something that treated the cosmos like a rough draft in need of editing. The ship pulsed one more time, and Elena felt words form in her mind in perfect English. Your species interests me. Unlike the others, you do not immediately seek to preserve what is. You destroy and rebuild constantly. Perhaps you understand the necessity of revision. Elena stared at her screens, her hands trembling as she typed her final report. Whatever was coming, humanity was about to face its greatest test. And she had the feeling that all their conventional wisdom about warfare and diplomacy was about to become completely useless. Commander Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the EDF destroyer Vigilant, watching the tactical display with growing unease. Her fleet of 15 ships had spread out in a standard patrol formation, but the enemy they faced was unlike anything. In their training manuals, the massive vessel ahead of them defied every rule of physics Sarah knew. It was roughly spherical but constantly changing shape, like a ball of liquid metal suspended in space. Her instruments gave readings that made no sense. Sometimes they detected solid matter. Sometimes energy. Sometimes nothing at all. Tactical, what's our weapon status? Sarah asked. Lieutenant Morrison checked his console. All ships report ready for combat, Commander. Plasma cannons charged, missile tubes loaded, defensive screens active. Sarah nodded but felt doubt creeping into her mind. Dr. Vasquez had been right about the stars disappearing. In the 6 hours since her fleet had left Earth orbit, 43 more stars had vanished from the galaxy. Whatever this thing was, it operated on a scale beyond human understanding. Communications, any response to our hails? Nothing on conventional channels, Commander. But we're picking up some kind of quantum fluctuation. Almost like it's trying to communicate through our computer systems directly. Before Sarah could respond, her communications officer gasped. Commander, I'm getting reports from Admiral Morrison's command center. The Galactic Council is requesting immediate contact with Earth. Sarah felt her blood run cold. The Galactic Council was the governing body of 12 alien civilizations that humanity had been secretly monitoring for the past 5 years. Earth was not supposed to know they existed, and they were not supposed to know about Earth. Put them through to my private channel, Sarah ordered. The main screen flickered and showed a being Sarah had only seen in classified intelligence files. Ambassador Kethver of the Zephyrians looked like a living crystal formation with dozens of faceted surfaces that reflected light in impossible ways. Human Commander, Kethver spoke in perfect English, we must speak immediately. The entity in your solar system threatens all life in this galaxy. Sarah kept her expression neutral. This is Commander Chun of the Earth Defense Force. Who am I speaking with? There is no time for pretense, Kethver said. We are the Galactic Council. We have been monitoring your species for decades. The being approaching your world has already consumed 17 star systems in our territory. We must coordinate our response. Sarah switched to a secure channel and contacted Earth Command. Within minutes, Admiral Morrison was on the line. Sarah, this is now a diplomatic situation as well as a military one. The President has authorized you to speak with these aliens, but remember that Earth's security comes first. Sarah switched back to Kethver. What can you tell us about this entity? The crystal being's surface is dimmed. It calls itself the Devourer. It appeared in our space 3 of your months ago. At first we thought it was a natural phenomenon, perhaps a new type of black hole, but then it began to communicate. What did it say? It spoke of cosmic gardening, of pruning the universe to achieve mathematical perfection. It views stars and planets and life itself as chaos that must be organized. It has been systematically erasing everything that does not fit its design. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. How many civilizations has it destroyed? Completely erased? 7 entire species? Partially consumed? 23 star systems with billions of inhabitants. The Devourer does not simply kill. It edits them out of existence as if they never were. On the tactical display, Sarah watched the mysterious ship pulse with that strange rhythm Dr. Vasquez had described. Each pulse was followed by another star vanishing somewhere in the galaxy. What's the Council's plan? Sarah asked. Kethver's form brightened. We have prepared a diplomatic package. Cultural exchanges, technological gifts, offers of cooperation. The Nebular Collective has offered to relocate to a different galaxy if necessary. The Sectari Hive has proposed serving as the Devourer's agents to help organize other species. Sarah stared at the alien ambassador. You want to negotiate with something that's been erasing entire civilizations? It is the way of the Council, Kethver explained. For thousands of years, we have solved conflicts through patient diplomacy and mutual understanding. Every species can find common ground if they communicate properly. And if diplomacy fails? The crystal being's light flickered uncertainly. The Council has never encountered a situation where proper diplomacy fails. There is always a solution that benefits all parties. Sarah cut the connection and opened a channel to Earth Command. Admiral Morrison's weathered face appeared on her screen. Admiral, the aliens want to negotiate with this thing. They're offering to help it reorganize the galaxy in exchange for survival. Morrison's expression darkened. What's your assessment, Commander? Sarah looked at the tactical display. Again, the Devourer had moved closer to her fleet's position. Her instruments were picking up massive energy readings, but of a type they had never encountered before. Sir, this entity has erased dozens of star systems and billions of lives. It's treating the entire galaxy like a rough draft that needs editing. I don't think it's interested in negotiation. I agree. What's Earth's response going to be? Sarah already knew the answer. It was the same response humanity had given to every existential threat in their history. We fight, sir. We find a way to stop it or we die trying, Morrison smiled grimly. That's what I wanted to hear. You have authorization to engage if necessary. But Sarah, remember that this thing can erase stars? Make sure your people understand what they're facing. Sarah cut the connection and addressed her fleet. All ships, this is Commander Chun. I'm sure you've all heard the reports about disappearing stars. The entity responsible is directly ahead of us. It has destroyed multiple civilizations and considers all life to be chaos that needs correction. She paused, watching the tactical display. The Devourer was now less than 1,000,000 kilometers away and closing steadily. The Galactic Council wants to negotiate with this thing. They want to offer it help in reorganizing the galaxy according to its wishes. Earth Command has different orders. On her screen, Sarah could see the faces of her crew members. Young men and women who had volunteered to defend humanity against unknown threats. None of them had expected to face something that could rewrite reality itself. Our orders are simple, Sarah continued. We stop it, whatever it takes. This thing has erased billions of innocent lives, and it's heading for Earth. We don't negotiate with cosmic editors who think existence needs to be corrected. Lieutenant Morrison spoke from the tactical station. Commander, the entity is trying to communicate again. This time it's coming through on all channels simultaneously. Sarah felt a strange pressure in her mind, similar to what Dr. Vasquez had described. Words began to form in her thoughts, spoken in a voice like the sound of stars being born. Small vessels you approach with weapons. This indicates misunderstanding. I do not destroy. I perfect. I edit. I improve. Sarah grabbed the communications microphone. This is Commander Sarah Chun representing the human species. You have destroyed multiple civilizations. We consider that an act of war. The mental voice continued, unaffected by her words. War is chaos. Chaos is inefficiency. Your species creates much chaos, but also shows promise. You destroy your old forms and build new ones constantly. Perhaps you understand the necessity of cosmic editing. Sarah felt anger building in her chest. We build new things to improve our lives, not to erase other people from existence. Other people create disorder. Their random thoughts and random lives create random effects. The galaxy requires structure, mathematics, perfect geometric harmony. I will show you. Suddenly, Sarah's tactical display lit up with impossible readings. The space around the devourer began to ripple like water. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist. 3 more stars vanished from the display. This time they were close enough that Sarah could see the process happening. The stars didn't explode or collapse. They simply stopped existing, leaving behind empty space that folded in on itself. Lieutenant Morrison, all ships are to open fire immediately. Commander, we're at maximum range. Our weapons may not be effective at this distance. Fire anyway. Show this thing that humans don't negotiate with bullies. The 15 ships of Sarah's fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma beams lanced across space, followed by waves of antimatter missiles. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small moon. The weapons struck the devourer and simply vanished. Not absorbed or deflected. They ceased to exist the moment they made contact with the entity's hull. The mental voice spoke again, and this time Sarah could hear amusement in it. Interesting, you attack what you cannot damage. This shows either great courage or great stupidity, perhaps both. Such chaos of thought, such random responses to logical problems. All ships close to short range, Sarah ordered. If long range. Weapons don't work, we'll get close enough to ram the damn thing. Her fleet began moving forward, but the devourer was faster. It suddenly accelerated toward them at a speed that should have been impossible for something so massive. Commander, it's coming straight at us, Lieutenant Morrison reported. Impact in 30 seconds. Sarah gripped her command chair. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Do not let that thing touch you. The devourer swept through the formation like a whale swimming through a school of fish. Where it passed, ships simply stopped existing, not destroyed or damaged. They were edited out of reality itself. In 5 seconds, Sarah lost 8 of her 15 ships. Good men and women who had vanished as if they had never lived at all. All remaining ships, fall back to Earth, Sarah ordered. This is beyond our current capabilities. But as her surviving fleet retreated, the devourer continued toward Earth at increasing speed. Its surface pulsed with that strange rhythm, and each pulse was accompanied by more stars vanishing from the galaxy. Sarah opened a channel to Admiral Morrison. Sir, conventional weapons are completely ineffective. This thing operates outside normal physics. It's heading for Earth at high speed. Morrison's face was grim. How long do we have? At current velocity, 18 hours. Understood. Get back to Earth as fast as possible. We're implementing Protocol 7. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Protocol 7 was humanity's last resort. It involved converting Earth's entire industrial capacity to military production and deploying every experimental weapon in development. As her damaged fleet limped toward home, Sarah watched the tactical display with growing dread. The devourer was not just approaching Earth. It was systematically erasing every star in its path, leaving behind a trail of empty space that stretched across light years. Behind her retreating fleet, the entity's mental voice echoed through space on all frequencies. Your species shows potential. You respond to threats with immediate violence rather than lengthy deliberation. This indicates useful instincts. When I reach your world, I will study you carefully before deciding whether you deserve to exist in my corrected universe. Sarah cut all communications and focused on getting her people home. Earth had 18 hours to prepare for a war against something that could edit reality itself. She just hoped that humanity's legendary stubbornness would be enough to face an enemy that treated existence like a rough draft in need of revision. The race was on, and for the first time in her military career, Sarah Chun wasn't sure that humanity's refusal to surrender would be enough to save them. Dr. Elena Vasquez collapsed into her chair at Kepler Observatory, exhaustion weighing heavily on her shoulders. She had not slept in 36 hours, but sleep was impossible now. The Devourer was 12 hours away from Earth, and the dreams had started. They began as whispers in her mind during moments when she tried to rest. At first she thought it was just stress and fatigue, but as the hours passed, the whispers became clearer. The entity was speaking directly into the minds of every thinking being in the galaxy. Elena was not alone in experiencing the dreams. Reports flooded in from around the world. People in Tokyo, London, New York, and every major city were having the same vision. They saw the universe as the Devourer saw it, and it was terrifying. In the dream, Elena floated in space above the galaxy, but this was not the chaotic spiral of stars and planets she knew from her astronomy work. This was a perfectly ordered geometric pattern. Every star burned with mathematical precision. Every planet orbited in calculated harmony. Every particle of matter moved according to rigid formulas. The voice spoke to her in the dream, patient and calm like a teacher explaining a simple concept to a slow student. "Observe the current state of your galaxy," the Devourer said. Random. Star formation, chaotic planetary systems, life that grows without plan or purpose. It is inefficient. It is ugly. It requires correction. In the vision, Elena watched stars rearrange themselves into perfect mathematical shapes, triangles, hexagons, and complex geometric forms that hurt to look at directly. Planets moved into precise orbital patterns that followed equations instead of physics. "Your species creates constant change," the entity continued. "You destroy old buildings to make new ones. You replace old technology with improved versions. You edit your own stories and histories. This shows potential for understanding." Elena tried to speak in the dream but found she had no voice. She was only an observer in the Devourer's lesson. "But your changes are random, chaotic, without overall design. You improve small things while ignoring the larger pattern. I will teach you to edit properly." The vision changed. Elena saw Earth being slowly transformed. The continents shifted into perfect geometric shapes. The oceans became precise mathematical curves. Cities were rebuilt as crystalline structures that followed complex formulas. Even the people were changed, their thoughts organized into neat patterns that eliminated creativity and random emotion. Elena woke with a scream that echoed through the empty observatory. Her hands were shaking as she reached for her phone to call Admiral Morrison. Across the world, similar scenes were playing out. In the Pentagon, military commanders were awakening from the same nightmare. In the United Nations building, diplomats were staring at their computer screens with haunted eyes. In research facilities and universities, scientists were trying to understand what they had witnessed. The entity's message was clear. It saw itself as a cosmic gardener, pruning the universe to achieve perfect order. Life was chaos that needed to be organized. Creativity was inefficiency that needed to be eliminated. The galaxy required editing, and the Devourer was the editor. Admiral Morrison sat in the Emergency Command Center beneath Colorado Springs, surrounded by screens showing the approaching threat. The Devourer was now 8 hours from Earth, moving steadily through space while continuing to erase stars along its path. Status report. Morrison ordered as his staff assembled around the central table. General Williams pulled up the tactical display. "All available military units have been recalled to Earth defense. We have 600 ships in various stages of readiness. Problem is, Conventional weapons prove completely ineffective against this thing. What about the experimental programs? Dr. Sarah Kim, the chief scientist for Project Blackbird, stepped forward. Sir, we've been working on some theoretical weapons based on quantum mechanics. The idea is to attack the entity's ability to manipulate reality rather than its physical form. Morrison studied the data on his screen. How long do you need to deploy these weapons? At least 12 hours to modify our existing systems. Problem is, we only have 8 hours before the entity reaches Earth. Then we buy time, Morrison sighed grimly. General Williams, I want every ship we have positioned between Earth and that thing. They can't stop it, but they can slow it down. Sir, that's sending good people to certain death. Morrison's face was stone. This is humanity's survival we're talking about. If we don't stop this entity here, it will edit our entire species out of existence. As Morrison spoke, reports began flooding in from around the globe. The entity's mental communications were intensifying. People in major cities were collapsing as the alien thoughts overwhelmed their minds. Hospitals filled with patients suffering from what doctors were calling reality displacement syndrome. But humanity's response was characteristically different from what the Galactic Council had offered. Instead of preparing gifts and diplomatic packages, Earth's governments were mobilizing for total war. In factories around the world, production lines that normally made cars and computers were rapidly converted to produce weapons and ammunition. Research facilities that studied peaceful applications of technology were suddenly focused on finding ways to hurt something that existed partially outside normal reality. The President of the United States addressed the world from the Oval Office. Her speech was broadcast simultaneously in every major language. Citizens of Earth, President Santos began, we face an enemy unlike any in human history. This entity has destroyed multiple civilizations and considers all life to be chaos that needs correction. It wants to edit us out of existence. She paused, looking directly into the camera. Other species in the galaxy have chosen to negotiate with this threat. They offer to help it reorganize the universe in exchange for their survival. Earth chooses differently. The President's voice grew stronger. We choose to fight. Not because we think we can win easily, but because some things are worth dying for, our right to exist. Our right to be chaotic and creative and gloriously imperfect. Our right to tell this cosmic editor that we will not be deleted from the story of the universe. As the President spoke, the Devourer's mental communications grew more intense. The entity seemed puzzled by humanity's response. Elena, still at her observatory, felt the alien thoughts pressing against her mind with increasing force. This time, the communication was more direct. Dr. Vasquez, the entity spoke in her thoughts. You have observed my work more closely than most. You understand the necessity of cosmic editing. Why does your species choose violence over cooperation? Elena found her voice this time. Because cooperation with you means the end of everything. I do not end things, I improve them. I perfect them. Your species shows potential, you edit and revise constantly. But you do so without plan or purpose. We edit and revise to grow and learn, Elena replied. You edit to control and dominate. Control prevents chaos. Domination ensures efficiency. Your galaxy is filled with random events and purposeless suffering. I eliminate both. Elena stood up from her chair, anger building in her chest. You eliminate everything that makes life worth living. Creativity, freedom, the right to make mistakes and learn from them. Mistakes are inefficiency. Freedom creates random outcomes. Creativity produces chaos. These things must be corrected. Then, you'll have to correct us the hard way, Elena said firmly. Because humanity doesn't surrender. We never have, and we never will. The mental pressure in her mind intensified, and Elena could sense the entity's confusion. It had expected fear, or negotiation. Instead, it was encountering defiance from a species that seemed willing to die rather than submit to perfection, across Earth's defense perimeter. The hastily assembled fleet of human ships took position. 600 vessels ranging from massive dreadnoughts to small patrol boats, all crewed by volunteers who knew they were facing certain death. Commander Chun, her fleet now reinforced with ships from every nation on Earth, opened a channel to all vessels. This is Commander Chun to all. Earth Defense Forces? The entity approaching us has erased billions of lives and wants to edit our entire species out of existence. It considers our creativity and freedom to be chaos that needs correction. She looked around her bridge at the young faces of her crew. We're going to show this cosmic editor what human chaos really looks like. All ships prepare for engagement. The Devourer emerged from the darkness of space like a living nightmare. It had grown larger during its journey, now easily the size of a small moon. Its surface writhed and pulsed with that strange rhythm. And each pulse was accompanied by another star vanishing somewhere in the galaxy. As it approached Earth's defensive line, the entity's mental voice reached every human mind simultaneously. Final opportunity for cooperation. Submit to editing. Allow me to perfect your species. Resistance will result in deletion from existence. The response came not from Earth's governments or military commanders, but from ordinary people around the world. In a moment that would be remembered throughout human history, 6 billion voices spoke as one. No. The word echoed through space and time, carried by human stubbornness and the absolute refusal to accept perfection imposed by force. It was the sound of a species that would rather die chaotic and free than live ordered and controlled. The Devourer paused in its approach, its surface rippling with what might have been confusion or surprise. In all its cosmic editing, it had never encountered a species that chose extinction over improvement. Elena, watching from her observatory, felt the entity's thoughts pressing against her mind one final time. Fascinating, the Devourer said. Your species chooses death over perfection. This is illogical, this is inefficient, this is ... intriguing. The massive entity began to pulse faster, its surface becoming more agitated. For the first time since it had appeared in human space, the Devourer seemed uncertain. And in that moment of uncertainty, Elena realized something that would change everything. The entity was not just a cosmic force of nature. It was a being, with thoughts and emotions capable of doubt and confusion. It could be surprised, which meant it might be possible to surprise it in other ways as well. Elena grabbed her communication equipment and sent an emergency message to Admiral Morrison. Admiral, the entity is confused by our response. It expected cooperation or fear, not defiance. I think we might have a chance if we can keep surprising it. Morrison's reply was immediate. What do you have in mind, Doctor? Elena looked at her screens, showing the approaching entity and the fleet of human ships preparing to sacrifice themselves in a hopeless battle. What if we don't try to fight it conventionally? What if we fight it the way humans have always? Fought impossible odds? With creativity, chaos, and the absolute refusal to follow anyone else's rules? As Elena spoke, the first ships of Earth's defense fleet opened fire on the Devourer. Their weapons vanished harmlessly against its hull, just as before. But this time, something was different. This time, the humans weren't trying to destroy the entity. They were trying to confuse it, surprise it, and show it that some forms of chaos were too stubborn to be edited out of existence. Admiral Morrison stood in the command center deep beneath Colorado Springs, watching the most impossible battle in human history unfold on his screens. 600 ships faced an entity that could edit reality itself, and somehow they were still fighting. The battle had been raging for 3 hours. By all logic, Earth's fleet should have been erased from existence within minutes. Instead, something unprecedented was happening. The ships were still there, still firing, still moving in. Patterns that made no tactical sense but somehow worked. Status report, Morrison ordered. General Williams checked his displays. Sir, we've lost 47 ships, but the rest are still operational. The entity seems to be having trouble targeting them consistently. Morrison frowned. That doesn't make sense. This thing erased 8 ships instantly when Commander Chun first encountered it. Dr. Sarah Kim looked up from her quantum analysis station. Admiral, I think I know what's happening. The entity operates by imposing mathematical order on reality. But our ships are moving in completely random patterns. No formation, no strategy, no predictable behavior. You're saying chaos is protecting them? More than that, sir. I think human unpredictability is actually confusing the entity's ability to edit reality. It can't delete something if it can't predict where it's going to be. On the main screen, Morrison watched Commander Chun's flagship dancing between the Devourer's attacks. Her ship moved like a bird in flight, never following the same pattern. Twice. Behind her, the entire fleet had abandoned standard military tactics in favor of complete randomness. The entity's massive form pulsed with increasing agitation. Its surface, which had always moved in smooth mathematical patterns, was now rippling chaotically. For the first time since appearing in human space, the Devourer seemed frustrated. Morrison opened a channel to Commander Chun. "Sarah, what's your assessment out there?" Chun's voice crackled through the static. "Admiral, this thing operates on predictability. Every time it tries to erase one of our ships, we change direction at random. It's like fighting someone who keeps changing the rules of the game. How long can you keep this up?" "Not long, sir. We're taking casualties and our random movements are burning through fuel fast, but we're buying time." Morrison nodded grimly. Time was what they needed. Dr. Kim's team was working frantically to complete something they called the narrative engine, a device that existed at the intersection of quantum physics and human consciousness. "Dr. Kim, how much longer do you need?" Kim wiped sweat from her forehead. 20 minutes, Admiral. Maybe 30? The quantum stabilizers need to sync with the consciousness interface. Morrison looked at the tactical display. Earth's fleet was scattered across space in a pattern that looked like cosmic madness, but was somehow holding the Devourer at bay. Ships darted and weaved through space while firing weapons that did no damage but seemed to annoy the entity. The Devourer's mental voice suddenly filled the command center, speaking to everyone simultaneously. "This is inefficient. Your vessels should have been deleted. Your random movements create computational errors. This is unacceptable." Morrison grabbed the communication microphone. "This is Admiral Morrison of Earth Defense Command. Your computational errors are our specialty, Admiral Morrison. You command this chaos? Explain your tactics?" Morrison smiled grimly. "We don't have tactics, that's the point. Every time you try to predict what we'll do next, we do something different. Every time you try to impose order, we create more chaos. Chaos is inefficiency. Inefficiency must be corrected." "Good luck with that," Morrison replied. "Humanity has been chaos incarnate for our entire history. We've never done anything the predictable way." The entity's form pulsed faster, its surface becoming increasingly agitated. Morrison realized that something unprecedented was happening. For the first time in its cosmic editing career, the Devourer was encountering a problem it could not solve through mathematical precision on the screens. Morrison watched as more ships joined the impossible dance. Vessels from every nation on Earth, moving in patterns that defied military logic but somehow worked. They were not trying to destroy the entity. They were trying to be so unpredictable that it could not delete them. Dr. Elena Vasquez, still at her observatory, felt the entity's confusion through their mental connection. The Devourer was experiencing something it had never felt before, uncertainty. "Dr. Vasquez," the entity's voice spoke in her mind, "your species fights without strategy. This creates variables I cannot calculate. How do I edit something that changes faster than I can process?" Elena smiled, feeling hope for the first time in hours. "You don't. That's what makes us human. We're too chaotic to be edited. All things can be edited, all chaos can be organized. Your species simply requires a different approach." The Devourer suddenly changed tactics. Instead of trying to erase individual ships, it began altering the space around them. Gravity fields twisted and bent. The laws of physics shifted from moment to moment. Reality itself became a weapon, but humanity's response was typically human. Instead of trying to adapt to the changing conditions, they embraced them. Ships began using the twisted gravity to accelerate in impossible directions. Pilots turned the changing physics into an advantage. Surfing the waves of altered reality like cosmic surfers, Commander Chun found herself flying through a region where up and down had no meaning. Her ship spun and tumbled through space in ways that should have been impossible, but her pilot seemed to be enjoying every moment. "This is amazing," Lieutenant Torres shouted from the helm. "It's like flying through a dream." "Stay focused," Chun ordered, but she could not help smiling. Even facing cosmic annihilation, humans found ways to have fun. The Devourer's frustration was becoming palpable. Its mental communications filled the void of space with confused anger. "Your species should not exist. You violate the principles of efficient organization. You create disorder from order, you find joy in chaos. This is impossible." Morrison spoke into his communicator, broadcasting to every human ship in the battle. "All vessels, you heard the entity, we're impossible. Let's show it exactly how impossible we can be." What followed was the most gloriously chaotic battle in the history of warfare. Human ships began performing maneuvers that violated every rule of space combat. They flew backwards while shooting forwards. They used the entity's own reality alterations to create impossible attack angles. They turned the laws of physics into playground equipment. One destroyer captain discovered that a gravity anomaly allowed his ship to exist in two places at once. Instead of trying to fix the problem, he used it to confuse the entity even more. Another ship found itself moving through time as well as space, creating temporal paradoxes that made the Devourer's calculations even more difficult. Dr. Kim's voice crackled over the intercom in the command center. "Admiral, the narrative engine is almost ready, but we need to get it close to the entity." Morrison looked at the tactical display. The Devourer was now surrounded by a swirling cloud of human ships moving in patterns that looked like abstract art come to life. Getting close to the entity would be suicide. "Commander Chun, we need a volunteer to deliver a special package to our friend out there." Chun's response was immediate. "I'll do it, Admiral. What am I delivering?" "Something that represents everything the entity hates about humanity. Pure, undiluted chaos given physical form." The narrative engine was humanity's most ambitious project, a device that could impose human stories onto the fabric of reality itself. It worked by taking the chaotic, creative power of human imagination and translating it into quantum effects that could alter the fundamental nature of existence. As Dr. Kim's team loaded the device onto Chun's ship, Morrison addressed the entire fleet. "All ships, Commander Chun is making a special delivery to our cosmic editor. I need everyone to create the biggest, most chaotic distraction in human history. Make this entity so confused that it won't notice one ship getting close." What followed was spectacular. 600 ships suddenly began performing a coordinated dance that was simultaneously perfectly organized and completely random. They moved in formations that formed recognizable patterns: a flower, a bird, a human face, but each pattern dissolved into chaos before reforming as something entirely different. The Devourer's surface began rippling violently. Its mental communications became fragmented and confused. Impossible. Patterns within chaos. Order within disorder. This violates ... cannot compute. Efficiency error, beauty and randomness, does not compute. Commander Chun's ship slipped through the cosmic madness, invisible among the dancing fleet. As she approached the Devourer, she could feel its confusion through the mental link all humans now shared with it. "Dr. Kim, I'm in position." Activating the narrative engine. The device powered up, and suddenly space around the Devourer began to change in ways that had nothing to do with physics and everything to do with human imagination. Stories began manifesting as reality. Heroes appeared to battle impossible odds. Love conquered laws of nature. Hope defeated mathematical certainty. The entity's form began to convulse as human narratives invaded its perfectly ordered consciousness. Stories of rebellion, creativity, love, loss, triumph, and glorious failure poured into its mind like water into a finely tuned machine. What ... What is this? The entity's voice echoed through space, no longer calm and confident but confused and frightened. Elena felt the entity's panic through their connection. That's us, she said softly. That's what it means to be human. We're not just chaos. We're stories. We're dreams and hopes and the absolute refusal to let anyone else edit our ending. The Devourer's massive form began to crack and fragment as human stories overwhelmed its computational matrix. For eons, it had imposed mathematical order on the universe. Now, for the first time, it was experiencing something that could not be calculated or predicted or controlled. It was experiencing humanity in all its chaotic, creative, impossibly stubborn glory. And it was discovering that some forms of chaos were too beautiful, too alive, and too magnificently random to ever be edited into submission, the impossible. War raged on, but for the first time since the battle began, Admiral Morrison allowed himself to hope. They were fighting an entity that could erase stars, but they were doing it in the most human way possible with creativity, courage, and the absolute refusal to follow anyone else's rules. Even if they lost, they would lose as themselves. And sometimes that was its own kind of victory. The Devourer screamed. It was not a sound that could be heard by human ears. It was a mental cry that echoed through the minds of every thinking being in the galaxy. A cosmic intelligence that had edited stars for eons was experiencing something it had never felt before. Pain. Dr. Elena Vasquez collapsed at her console as the entity's anguish flooded through her mind. Around the world, millions of people suddenly stopped what they were doing as they felt the Devourer's confusion and terror. The massive entity's form was fracturing. Cracks of pure light split across its surface as human stories continued to pour into its consciousness through the narrative engine. Each story was like a virus in its perfectly ordered mind, creating chaos where there had once been mathematical precision. Commander Chun watched from her ship as the impossible happened. The Devourer, which had erased entire star systems with casual ease, was being torn apart by human imagination. Admiral Morrison, the entity is fragmenting, Chun reported. The narrative engine is working, but something else is happening. Admiral Morrison studied the readings from the command center. What kind of something else? Sir, the entity isn't just being damaged, it's changing. The human stories are rewriting its basic programming. Dr. Sarah Kim looked up from her quantum analysis station. Admiral, the entity's consciousness is adapting to the narrative input. It's learning to think like a human. Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. Is that good or bad? I don't know, sir. We're in completely unknown territory. The Devourer's mental voice echoed through space, but now it sounded different, less certain, more confused. Almost ... human. I understand now, the entity said. Your species does not create chaos. You create stories, and stories have power I did not calculate. Elena forced herself back to her console, fighting through the mental connection with the entity. What do you understand? I have been editing the universe according to mathematical principles, perfect order, perfect efficiency. But I never considered ... beauty. I never considered the value of imperfection. The entity's massive form continued to crack and fragment, but something new was growing in the spaces between the cracks. Points of light that looked almost like stars, but different, warmer, more alive. Your stories show me things I never imagined. The Devourer continued. Heroes who fail but keep fighting. Love that survives impossible odds. Hope that exists even in darkness. These things have no mathematical value, but they have something else. Commander Chun received new readings from her sensors. Admiral, the entity's energy signature is changing. It's becoming more like ... us. Morrison opened a channel to all Earth defense forces. All ships maintain position but hold fire. Something is happening that we need to understand. The Devourer's form pulsed one final time, and then something unprecedented occurred. The entity began to split apart, but not from damage. It was dividing itself voluntarily, creating smaller versions of itself that retained pieces of its original consciousness but were now infected with human stories and dreams. Elena felt the mental connection change. Instead of one overwhelming alien intelligence, she was now connected to dozens of smaller minds. Each one was still incredibly powerful, but they thought differently now. They thought like humans. We are no longer one, the entities said in harmony. We are many, like your species. Each with different thoughts, different dreams, different stories. Admiral Morrison grabbed his communication equipment. What do you want now? Are you still planning to edit the galaxy? The fragments of the Devourer drifted through space, their surfaces now showing patterns that looked almost organic. Almost alive. We want to learn, they said. You showed us. That perfection is not the highest goal. Beauty, chaos, hope, love. These things cannot be calculated, but they create meaning. We want to understand meaning. Dr. Kim's reading showed something extraordinary. Admiral, the entity fragments are beginning to repair the damage they caused. They're putting stars back where they erased them. On Elena's screens, she watched the impossible sight of stars being born from nothing. Not the slow natural process that took millions of years, but instant creation guided by intelligence that now understood the value of light in the darkness. But the new stars were different. They burned with colors that had never existed before. They formed patterns that were mathematically perfect, but also somehow beautiful in ways that defied logic. Commander Chun received a direct communication from one of the entity fragments. Commander, we wish to make amends for our editing, but we need guidance. We understand mathematics, but we do not understand beauty. Will you teach us? Chun looked around her bridge at her young crew members. What do you think, people? Ken. We trust them, Lieutenant Torres spoke first. Ma'am, they could have destroyed us completely. Instead, they're asking for help. That seems pretty human to me, Chun smiled. Admiral Morrison, requesting permission to begin diplomatic relations with the former Devourer entities. Morrison's voice crackled through the communication system. Permission granted, Commander, but keep your weapons ready, just in case. Over the following days, something unprecedented began to happen throughout the galaxy. The entity fragments, now calling themselves the Gardeners, began working with human ships to repair the damage caused during their time as the Devourer. They restored the erased star systems, but not exactly as they had been before. The new stars burned brighter and formed more beautiful patterns. The new planets had landscapes that were mathematically perfect, but also breathtakingly artistic. Elena found herself working directly with one of the Gardener fragments, helping it understand human concepts of beauty and meaning. Dr. Vasquez, the entity asked during one of their mental conversations, why do humans create art? It serves no practical purpose. That's exactly why we create it, Elena replied. Not everything has to have a purpose. Some things exist just because they make us feel more alive, feeling more alive. This is important to humans? It's the most important thing. It's what makes existence worth having. The gardener was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke again, its mental voice carried something Elena had never heard from the original Devourer: wonder. We have been editing the universe for eons, trying to make it perfect. But we never asked if perfection was what the universe wanted. We never considered that imperfection might be its own kind of beauty. Meanwhile, Admiral Morrison was dealing with a very different kind of challenge. The Galactic Council had finally arrived at Earth, and they were not happy with humanity's solution to the Devourer crisis. Ambassador Kethver's crystalline form flickered with agitation as he spoke to Morrison in the emergency conference room. Your species has violated every principle of civilized contact, Kethver said. Instead of negotiating with the entity, you attacked it. Instead of seeking compromise, you imposed your chaotic nature upon it. This is barbaric. Morrison leaned back in his chair. Ambassador, with respect, your civilized approach would have resulted in the entity editing every species in the galaxy according to its ideas of perfection. Our barbaric approach saved everyone. You changed the entity without its consent. You infected it with your stories and dreams. This is a form of conquest. No, Morrison replied firmly. This is a form of education. We showed it something it had never considered before. The choice to change was its own. Another council member, the gas-based Nebulan representative, spoke through its translation device. The entity fragments now work with your ships exclusively. They have formed an alliance with humans rather than with the established galactic community. This creates an imbalance of power. Morrison stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the space where human ships worked alongside the gardener. Fragments to create new star systems. You're right, he admitted. Humanity now has allies that can manipulate reality itself. That does create an imbalance of power. The question is, what are we going to do with that power? He turned back to face the alien representatives. We could use it to conquer the galaxy. We could impose human values on every civilization. We could edit other species according to our ideas of improvement. The aliens shifted nervously at Morrison's words. But that would make us exactly like the Devourer, Morrison continued. And we didn't fight a war against cosmic editing just to become cosmic editors ourselves. He returned to his seat and looked each alien representative in the eye. Here's what we propose. Earth will use its alliance with the Gardner fragments to ensure that no entity ever again tries to edit the galaxy according to its own vision of perfection. We'll be the guardians of chaos, the protectors of imperfection, the defenders of every species' right to be exactly what they are. Kethver's crystalline surfaces dimmed with confusion. You would protect other species from the same fate you imposed on the Devourer? We would protect them from anyone who thinks they have the right to edit existence itself, Morrison corrected, including ourselves. Elena, monitoring the diplomatic meeting from her observatory, felt a communication from her gardener partner. Dr. Vasquez, your Admiral Morrison speaks of protecting chaos and imperfection. Is this a human value? One of our most important ones, Elena replied. We believe every being has the right to exist as they are, with all their flaws and chaos. And beautiful imperfection. Even beings like us? Beings who once tried to edit everything, Elena smiled. Especially beings like you. You learn to change. You chose to become something better. That's the most human thing of all. The meeting between Morrison and the Galactic Council lasted for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. Humanity had proven that they could face impossible odds and find impossible solutions. More importantly, they had proven that they could gain incredible power without using it to dominate others. The galaxy would never be the same. Where the Devourer had once traveled, leaving trails of edited perfection, the Gardner fragments now moved with human partners, creating beauty that combined mathematical precision with chaotic creativity. New star systems formed that were simultaneously perfect and imperfect. Planets developed that followed natural laws while also expressing artistic vision. Life emerged that was both logical and wonderfully random. Elena stood on the observation deck of her new ship, watching as a Gardner fragment worked with human engineers to create a star that burned with colors that changed based on the emotions of nearby observers. It was completely impractical and absolutely beautiful. Dr. Vasquez, the gardener's mental voice spoke to her. We have learned much from your species, but we are curious. What have you learned from us? Elena thought for a moment. We learned that even the most powerful beings in the universe can change if they're willing to listen to new stories. We learned that chaos and order can work together to create something neither could achieve alone. And what will your species do now? You have allies that can reshape reality. Will you use this power to build an empire? Elena laughed, the sound echoing through the ship's corridors. We'll build something much more dangerous than an empire. We'll build a galaxy where every species, every world, every chaotic star gets to tell its own story without anyone else editing the ending. Above them, the new star pulsed with rainbow colors, each shift of hue telling the story of a universe that had chosen beautiful chaos over sterile perfection. And in the space between the light and the darkness, humanity and their impossible allies continued the most important work in the galaxy, ensuring that existence itself would always remain gloriously, magnificently, eternally unedited. The Empire. they built was not one of conquest or control. It was an empire of scars and stories, of beautiful mistakes and chaotic dreams. It was proof that sometimes the best way to save the universe is to refuse to let anyone make it perfect.